Welcome and thanks for stopping by. I am so glad to have you. My name is Ray, and today I will read to you chapter 11 from the book of Genesis. In chapter 11, we will learn about one of the most famous, or I should say popular stories of the Bible, the Tower of Babel, and be introduced to one of the most famous or popular characters of the Bible, Abram or Abram. So if you're ready, go ahead and turn me up and let's get started. Okay, chapter 11, reading from the English Standard Version. Okay? Now the whole earth had one language and the same words. And as people migrated from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they had bricks for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its tops in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth." And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of man had built. And the Lord said, "Behold, they are one people, and they have all one language. And this is only the beginning of what they will do, and nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and there confuse the language, so that they may not understand one another's speech." So the Lord dispersed them there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore, its name was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth. And from there, the Lord dispersed them over the face of all the earth. Now, before we move on to the next section of the chapter, I would like to share with you some notes about the Tower of Babel. One, let's go back to verse 1. Okay? Now the whole earth had one language and the same words. What was the language? And what did that sound like? The whole earth had one language and the same words. So there was no accents. There was just one vernacular. There was no diversity or the benefits of diversity. So I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking like, okay, so if it's just one language and one word, so there's no tomato, no water or agua, no Z or Z, no thank you or danka, no problem or wahala. That's interesting. Just no diversity, period. Another observation, in verse 1, the whole earth spoke the same language in the same words, the whole earth. And the reason why I'm pointing the whole earth out, because in chapter 10, the sons of Noah's sons was dispersed to their own lands, nations, in their own language, and their own clans. Remember? In chapter 10. So how is it that in chapter 11, the first verse, the whole earth Does that mean that chapter 10 and 11 was written in the wrong order? No. No. But this is what I believe it means. Chapter 11 has it sits in an interesting position. It sits between the story of creation and the story of Abraham. And so what it does is it bridges the two. And that's why I'm addressing chapter 11 in two parts. One, the first part, the Tower of Babel. And then the second part will start to be introduced. We'll be introduced to Abram. So 1 through 10, if you will, is the preface. 11 is the bridge. And then we move into story of Abraham. And then we watch how the promises of God play out. So verse 4, then they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth. Okay. It sounds like they actually knew they were wrong. It sounds like, we're just going to convince God that we're big enough and we're strong enough and we're creative enough to stand on our own. Yeah, I know he had a plan for us, but we're going to stop here. We're going to stop here and we're going to build our city, and we'll just build it up to the heavens. Okay. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. And we're going to try to impress him because he is a respecter of men. No, he's not. And he says it in his word. And so you're building this tower to justify your disobedience. Now, it sounds like I'm picking on them, but I'm really talking about us, because so was the Bible. It's just mankind. We're like that. We build towers of Babel all the time. I'm going to call that your plan, my plan, without God. And then we justify our actions by, or justify disobeying by how big we're going to do it, or how intelligent we are, and how creative we are, and how strong we are, and we're justified, right? And then God says, I'm sorry, that's not the plan. Now, he goes and confuses the language. So let's look at verses 5 and 6. This is the funny part. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of man had built. He didn't even claim it. He said, that's the children of man. And the Lord said, behold, they are one people, and they have all one language. And this is only the beginning of what they will do. And nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. Now, for a second, I honestly believed that God was not, I honestly believe for 1 second, God was amazed and concerned. Let me explain. So imagine you come down in the morning time to the kitchen and your 2-year-old is eating a bowl of cereal. And this, if you have children, you may have experienced a time where you were both amazed and concerned. And so your 2-year-old's eating a bowl of cereal, and you can't figure out how they got that bowl, because you know that bowl was on the top shelf in the wall cabinet. Okay, and there's no chair up on the counter or leaning towards the counter. There's no ladder. There's no footstool. And you're trying to figure out, how did this 2-year-old get up there and get that bowl? And then at the same time, you are extremely concerned because, oh my goodness, what if they would have failed? So did they climb up on the counter? I know I told them not to climb up on that counter. So at the same time, you're amazed and concerned. And that's what I feel like happened here. Like God said, look at them. If I don't go down there and stop them, they won't even stop here. They gonna do whatever they want to do and gonna get it done. But this is not in my wheelhouse. And because I know the plans I have for them, let's go down there and confuse the language. Why, Lord? Why would you confuse the language of the people? Well, there's no diversity. When there's no diversity, and nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. When there's no diversity, you don't have to try. You don't have to be considerate. You're just going to take it upon yourself. And that's not, God's a people. If you ever said you're not a people person, he's a people God. I might say I'm not a people person, but he's a people God. Yeah, he's into people. Yes. So one language, same words. And what was the language? You know, what was the language? We're gonna take a look at that in a second. But when there's no diversity, you have a culture that doesn't exist with any other culture. Can you imagine that? I'm going to say no, you cannot. Because no one on this earth today knows what that looks like, sounds like, feel like, and nothing else. We cannot imagine that. And I'm going to tell you why. For those of you who are saying, don't tell me what I can't imagine. Well, it already came out. I did. You're on YouTube. You're watching this on YouTube. And I'll let that sit with you for a little bit. Okay, I'll just tell you. There's too much culture and diversity right here where you're viewing this. We have multiple languages, multiple vernaculars, multiple accents, different lands, different cultures, different religions. That's the world that we live in. That is what's on this earth right now. So if I go to France, I have to consider the people in France and the culture in France. I may even have to learn a couple words in order to converse with them, and then in order for them to understand me and for me to understand them. Okay, if my neighbor is Muslim, guess what? I have to consider them and respect their religion. I don't have to become. I have to consider them and be respectful. I can't offer them bacon. Okay? If I invite them for breakfast, I'm not going to have pork in the menu. Now, is this just for the people, someone else, or is this for you? Diversity really plays a bigger role on us individually. Individually, we are growing. Individually, we are stretched. Individually, we are caused to take a moment and consider another person. And that's what God wants us to do. He gave his only begotten son. That means he's a giving God. That means he's a God of sacrifice. That means he's a God of consideration. That means he's a God of love and forgiveness. And when you just have one people, one language, one land, one city, one everything, This is what it looks like. There is no stretching you out of yourself, out of your comfort zone. There is no, you are not a people. You cannot be a people person. You are not going to show love or consideration outside of that box. You're creating a box for yourself, and you're doing it out of fear because you know you are supposed to go and populate the earth and fill it and be fruitful and multiply, because that was the order that God gave the people. Remember that when they came off the boat, his Noah's sons, this is what God gave them then. All right. Chapter 9. Chapter 9, verse 7. And you be fruitful and multiply, increase greatly on the earth and multiply in it. So chapter 9, verse 18. Verse 19, I'm sorry. These three were the sons of Noah, and from these the people of the whole earth were dispersed. Therefore, there was a commandment given to Noah's sons for their sons, and they were supposed to carry it on, but they stopped in the land of Shinar. Chapter 11, verses 2, and settled there. And what happened to the land of Shinar? It becomes the place where Nimrod built Babylonia. And as you go on through the Bible, you're going to find out why that was not a good idea. But anyway, so here God has given them a command. Fill the earth. Go. Oh, no, we're going to stop. Settle here. And then let's build us a city and a tower to the heavens so we can make a name for ourselves. And in that way, we won't be messed with God and realize we got this. We could do it ourselves. How many times have you done that and said that? And God confused the language. It doesn't work. Stick to his plan. It doesn't work to go against them. It doesn't. God had a plan, and they were supposed to follow the plan, and they took it upon themselves not to follow the plan, which we do so much. But you may be wondering, so why should we follow God's plan? You're probably not wondering that. But I'm just going to tell you in scripture why we should follow God's plan and not ours. Okay? And I'll just also say, it's not that he doesn't want us to have a plan. It's not that he doesn't want us to have a plan. He just wants us to include him. He wants us to line up with him. When you're not in line with God and you have a plan, it looks very different from his plan. And you'll approach it different. The way you'll go about it will be different, outside of the will of God. So he's just saying, just get inside of my will and let's plan together. Let's work it out together. I want to see your plan come to fruition. And so line up with me so we can work it out. So I can help you. I can guide you according to my plan, according to my will. 3 scriptures. Psalms 139:5. You enclosed me behind and before and laid your hand upon me. He enclosed. I believe this is David saying to God, you enclosed me. He enveloped you all around from behind and before. So he knew your beginning and your end. Jeremiah chapter 1 verse 5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And Jeremiah 29 verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. That's why. That's why we should go with God's plan. So, that concludes the story of the Tower of Babel. Stay tuned for the second part. Don't go nowhere. We're going to keep on moving. Okay?